Hello once again, and welcome to day number 120. 120. My name is Mary, and today's story is Absalom's death. The land on the east of the Jordan where David found a refuge was called Gilead, a word that means high, because it is higher than the land on the west of the Jordan. There, in the city of Mahanaim, the rulers and the people were friendly to David. David's friends gathered from all the tribes of Israel until he had an army. It was not large as the army of Absalom, but in it were the brave warriors who had fought under David in other years. David divided his army into three parts and placed Joab, Abishai, and Ittai in command of the parts. Then David said to the chiefs of his army, I will go out with you in battle. But the men said to David, No, you must not go with us. If half of us should lose our lives, no one will care. But you are worth 10,000 of us, and your life is too precious. You must stay here in the city and be ready to help us if we need help. So the king stood by the gate of Mahanaim while his men marched out. And as they went past the king, the men heard him say to the three chiefs, Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, For my sake, deal gently with Absalom. Even now David loved his son and wanted his life spared. A great battle was fought on that day. Absalom himself went into battle riding on a mule, as kings always did. David's soldiers won a great victory, and riding on a mule, as kings always did, pardon me, I'm repeating myself. Anyway, I will go on. David's soldiers won a great victory and killed thousands of Absalom's men. The armies were scattered in the woods, and many men were lost. So it was said that the woods swallowed up more men than the sword. When Absalom saw that his cause was hopeless, he rode away, hoping to escape. But as he was riding under the branches of an oak, his head, with its great mass of long hair, was caught in the tree's branches. He struggled to free himself, but couldn't. His mule ran away, and Absalom was left hanging in the air by his head. One of David's soldiers saw him and said to Joab, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak. Why didn't you kill him? Asked Joab. If you had killed him, I would have given you a reward. If you gave me 1,000 pieces of silver, answered the soldier, I would not touch the king's son. I heard the king tell all the generals and the men, let no one harm the young man Absalom. And if I had killed him, even you couldn't protect me from the king's anger. I cannot stay to talk with you, said Joab. And with 3 darts in his hand, he hastened to the place where Absalom was hanging. He thrust Absalom's heart through with the darts. And after that, his followers, finding that Absalom was still living, pierced his body until they were sure he was dead. Then they took down his body, threw it into a deep hole in the forest, and heaped a great pile of stones on it. After the battle, Ahimaaz, the son of the priest Zadok, came to Joab. Ahimaaz was one of the two young men who brought news from Jerusalem to David at the river Jordan. He said to Joab, "Let me run and take news of the battle to the king." But Joab knew that the message of Absalom's death would not be pleasing to King David, and he said, "Some other time you shall bear news, but not today, because the king's son is dead." Joab called another man and said to him, "Go and tell the king what you have seen." The man bowed to Joab and left. But after a time, Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, "Let me also run and take news." "Why do you wish to go, my son?" said Joab. "The news will not bring you any reward." "Let me go anyhow," said the young man, and Joab gave him permission. Ahimaaz ran with all his might and went by a better road, so he was the first man the watchman on the wall saw. King David was waiting below, in the little room between the outer and inner gates, anxious for news of the battle, but more anxious for his son Absalom. The watchman on the wall called down to the king, "I see a man running alone." And the king said, "If he is alone, he is bringing a message." He knew that if men were running away after a defeat, there would be a crowd of them. Then the watchman called again, "I see another man running alone." And the king said, "He is also bringing some news." The watchman spoke again, "The first runner is coming near, and he runs like Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok." David said, "He is a good man, and he comes with good news." Ahimaaz came near and cried out as he ran, "All is well." The first words the king spoke were, "Is Absalom all right?" Ahimaaz was too wise to bring the king word of Absalom's death. He left that to the other messenger and said, "When Joab sent me, there was a great noise over something that had taken place, but I did not stop to learn what it was." A little later, the other man arrived. "News for my lord the king. This day the Lord has given you victory over your enemies." And David said again, "Is Absalom all right?" This messenger, who knew nothing of David's feeling, answered, "May all the enemies of my lord the king and all that try to do him harm be as that young man is." And I will show you a picture. It says the messenger lets David of Absalom's death. Oh, tells David of Absalom's death. Here it is. The messenger talking to the king. Okay, David's sorrow over Absalom made him forget the victory that had been won. Slowly, he walked up the steps to the room in the tower over the gate, and as he walked, he said, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, I wish that I had died for you, my son, my son." And that was the word of the Lord. Now we come to our discussion questions. Number one, why didn't the chiefs of his army want David to go into battle? Why didn't the chiefs of his army want David to go into battle? Number two, what did David say to his men before they went into battle? What did David say to his men before they went into battle? Second part of question number two is, what does that show you about David? What does that show you about David? Number three, one soldier would not kill the king's son. Do you think he was right? Number three, one soldier would not kill the king's son. Do you think he was right? Number four, who killed Absalom? Who killed Absalom? Number five, how did David feel when he heard of Absalom's death? How did David feel when he heard of Absalom's death? And that was the end of our questions as well. And day 120. Talk to you soon again. Thank you for attending.